An unexpected delivery to their 1927 mansion helps a Tennessee couple uncover a pioneer behind the wheel of the American car industry. Owners of a 1779 Virginia house discover ironclad clues that forge their property's heated past in the American Revolution. And a Michigan couple finds their unique 1904 home is hiding evidence of bank robberies, Saturday night specials, and a toolman's dream.
What this is a nail puller.
These stories and more, if walls could talk. Hello, I'm Grant Goodeve. Welcome to If Walls Could Talk. It's no secret that this country's early innovators like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison had people working with them to help drive their success. Robert and Charlotte White were aware of this when they purchased their 1927 home in Signal Mountain, Tennessee. But just days after moving in, a surprise package in their mailbox helped them steer toward the lost history of their home's original owner, an American pioneer who helped the automobile industry motor into an exciting future.
It was kind of scary to walk in and see this cold, huge house that had not been lived in for 3 years and know that we could do something with that.
The first time Robert and Charlotte White toured their 1927 Italianate mansion, all they heard was the cold echo of footsteps on hard marble floors. But they knew the key to jump-starting the home's transformation was to introduce the warm laughter of their family.
One of the things that our neighbors said that they were just glad to see lights back on.
As Robert and Charlotte turned the lights back on in the southern Tennessee house, they realized that the 4-story structure was constructed with concrete and marble. They began to wonder how such a home was built in the 1920s.
There's barely cars, so there sure aren't any concrete trucks. So it had to have been a very big job.
The couple learned that the house was designed by Walter Marr, the original owner. Before the Whites could look for solid facts about his past, they uncovered 1927 signatures of 2 craftsmen on the roof of their garage. The date proved that the multi-car building was original and another unique feature for its time.
It was hard to come up with any theory on why in 1927 somebody would have the foresight to think that multiple cars would be a norm in families, and especially 5 cars.
As they began their trip back in time, the Whites detailed their home with original paint found in the basement. They also discovered a 1920s metal sign that Walter Marr made for the property. But what shifted the couple into high gear was an unexpected delivery to their mailbox, which accelerated their understanding of the home's history.
We had a book arrived from Buick Motor Company, pretty much welcoming us into their family. It was the history of Buick that was written in the book. They, knew who we were, to Robert and Charlotte White, welcome to the Buick family.
In the book's early chapters about automobile history, Robert and Charlotte were curious to find Walter Marr's name throughout the pages. They were surprised to learn that he was a driving force behind the Buick Motor Company, and that besides being their chief engineer, Walter Marr also invented the engine technology that today's cars still run on.
It was really interesting to read, what all he did and what he actually meant, how valuable his role was to Buick Motor Company.
When the couple worked on their bathrooms, they detoured away from Marr's business success and discovered how the first owner's mechanical know-how was reflected in his home. They learned that the electrified medicine cabinets were more expensive in 1927 than the carved marble mantelpiece in their living room.
I just cannot imagine anyone else other than an engineer coming up with something like this in 1927.
The Whites were led even further into Walter Marr's personal life after realizing that his granddaughter lived right next door.
They have been wonderful, just giving us so much information and so many pictures that help us.
Through their neighbors, Robert and Charlotte have been able to return some of Walter Marr's furniture to the home. But they didn't sit on the history. Instead, they asked how Walter and his wife Abby ended up nearly 700 miles south of the engineer's offices in Flint, Michigan. They were surprised to learn that the inventor of the modern engine was also one of the first telecommuters, too.
He ran Buick's engineering department from the basement of the house, and he consulted with Buick still at that time. So this was his engineering shop.
By moving his office to Signal Mountain, Tennessee, an area where he wanted to permanently live, Walter Marr also brought with him some of the automobile industry's heavy hitters.
Henry Ford has visited this home, David Buick, Tom Buick. He pretty much was one of the Bill Gates of the 20s. So all the automobile industry people frequented this home and visited with him, and they were his peers.
Robert and Charlotte are impressed by the legendary leaders who have visited their house. But they prefer to wax on about Walter Marr and his contributions to the car industry. They feel it's their chance to put a new polish on a nearly forgotten but important figure.
He was someone who was driving in an industry, but also still wanted to be happy in his life and live where he wanted to live. The house is so beautiful, but the history was the greater present, and it was such a surprise.
Robert and Charlotte learned that one of the reasons Walter Marr was so successful at his work was because he paid very close attention to details. They also realized this trait spilled over into his home life when they found out the first floor of their house was built twice. Walter wasn't pleased with the construction the first time around, so he demanded that the home be started again. While the couple shudder at what that must have cost, 70 years later, they're grateful he insisted on a well-built home. When we come back, molded